Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is Commissar here, and today I have what should be a great match for you to cast, and that is a game which is going to be featuring Stephano, formerly Millennium Stephano. He is our Blue Zerg today, spawning in the bottom left-hand side of the map, and his opponent in the top right-hand side of the map is StarNaN from the team Western Wolves, a Swedish Protoss player. Okay, so going into StarNaN first, as I said, signed by the Western Wolves. He is indeed a Swedish Grandmaster, and in terms of tournament results, while he hasn't achieved a great deal, he has qualified for DreamHack, and he has indeed had not the worst showings at DreamHack. At the last two DreamHack events, he placed in the top 64 both times, getting through the first stage in groups. He beat Cloud in a good series. He lost to Sasse 2-1, so almost knocking out Sasse. He's played a ton of good players and done quite well against them, but has not been consistently able to beat them, and as such has never really been able to win or get to the later stages of any tournaments. Nonetheless, still a good player nonetheless, a very good player in fact, and on the ladder that's reflected by his high win rates and his position in the Grandmaster League. So Stephano, on the other hand, everybody knows Stephano really. It says Millennium Stephano here, but of course, as most people know by now, Stephano has indeed left Team Millennium. I believe his contract did expire, and as such, Stephano has gone into a position, by the way, very nice little middle line harassment, that probe by StarNaN. But yeah, Stephano is now in a teamless position, but he is rumoured to be signed by EG any day now. Literally, it's basically been announced by EG that they are planning to sign him, and it's kind of shocked everybody that he hasn't actually been signed yet, and it looks like we might see a cannon rush attempted here by StarNaN on this natural, but no, I believe he's just trying to sort of scare Stephano a little bit and go in for a little bit more scouting, and he will see the spawning pool is down. It is important to scout this pool, as basically if you see no pool when you go in for the second time, you can basically confirm a quick third base is about to come. This quick third base, of course, is going to mean, okay, I'd have to respond by, say, either taking a quick third of my own or putting some pressure on. But in this case, however, with a pool before a third hatch, certainly StarNaN is looking just fine to go on about his normal business, and his normal business is very, very weird. Stephano sees this, but this should normally be a forge in any typical Protoss build. However, going for a gateway first is actually quite alarming, and I'm curious to see if he'll go for a 2-gate here and try to apply some very early zealot pressure, and wouldn't waste a chance of playing with you on a cannon rush. So StarNaN says, and StarNaN of course very, very excited about playing Stephano, and he has played a ton of good players, as I do indeed have a replay pack which does feature both the wins and losses by him, so don't expect that StarNaN will win. But do expect that it's a good game, as StarNaN has indeed intended to basically include it in a replay pack to showcase his high-level play. Okay, so StarNaN is going to say, yep, he's looking to practice, so it's always good to see that he's going to be basically very excited, very eager, and I'm assuming that he's very good, because I mean, he has had good showings in DreamHack. Beating Cloud is no small feat, taking a game of Sasse in a tournament is no small feat either. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see what he does indeed go for. Of course, it is very weird, because most Protoss timings, at least a large portion of them, idle workers over here is a bit of a mistake by StarNaN, but a lot of Protoss timings do rely on having +1 attack, and without a forge that's obviously not going to happen, so we'll have to wait and see what does come. Okay, over on the Stephano side, the third base of course has finished. We do indeed see in the main base, Gas Guys is just being taken now actually, as I scroll over it, on about 40 supply, which is quite late. It's a bit later than most. Most people do get that one earlier Gas Geyser, but still it's not uncommon. Idra does this sort of thing all the time. It's especially easy, especially good to do if you do take that quick third base, as it does allow you to get out your queens and your drones, and basically not have a big bank up of minerals building up, as a result of basically not having guys on gas and having to make those extractors and lose those drones on the buildings. So as such, yeah, Stephano is looking to play out a pretty normal game so far, getting a Roach Warren. We'll have to wait and see if this is for, say, a quick 200 supply big push of 3 bases, as Stephano is known to do very, very often, or if he'll perhaps be just using it for safety and say trying to take it in, basically fend off any sort of early pressure, as we do indeed see early pressure coming out of StarNaN. In the base of StarNaN, we do indeed see 3 gates and a forge, actually. Finally, the forge are coming down, so it will indeed be a 4-gate pressure coming out of StarNaN. We are going to see Stephano try and fight him off, but unfortunately for him, StarNaN is microing quite well, avoiding surrounds here, and the queen is not going to go down despite his efforts, and it looks like these stalkers will be driven back. The proxy pylon has been revealed. Stephano knows not to underreact here, as he knows, okay, with that pylon there, it's obvious my opponent is committing to this attack. As such, roaches and a ton of lings are ready to try and deal with it. Will the lings be able to deal with it? I don't think so. He's going to have to try and stall until the roaches are out, and he is perhaps going to lose the queen. The hatchery not being attacked yet. Of course, we'll have to wait and see what StarNaN does indeed decide to go for. A bit of hesitation, I think, from him. Now going for the hatchery, warping in zealots to protect that pylon. And it looks like StarNaN's having quite a decent push, but at the same time getting surrounded just after I say that. Looks like the stalkers will survive, and actually is coming out surprisingly well against those lings. The roaches, of course, are now out, are perfect to deal with this, and will he go for the hatch? I feel like focusing that hatch could be a great way to go here, but the stalkers, if they're kept alive, could be a great way to kite those guys. And meanwhile, more and more zealots being warped in. That would suggest the hatch is going to be focused down. And yes, these zealots will definitely get that hatch if they all focus it, which they're not doing right now. And I feel like StarNaN's making a bit of a mistake here, being a bit indecisive with what he targets. Meanwhile, the zealots are going to be cleaned up by the roaches, and these stalkers are also going to be pushed back. So I feel like that hatch would have gone down if everything that StarNaN had focused it. And in the end of the day, you look at the units lost tab and you see Stephano is ahead. You look at the army for StarNaN. So yeah, Stephano's ahead on units lost tab. StarNaN's army is tiny. And he may have a hard time securing a third base now with not many units out on the field. Especially if Stephano does indeed pump out more roaches and go for a big push. He is not pumping out more roaches, but he does have enough, I think, with the Ling support too, to perhaps deny this third base for a little while. So of course StarNaN is very behind after that attack, and like I said, very indecisive with what he was targeting. And yeah, you can see, just going to deny the third base, and Stephano knows, okay, I'm on 3 bases, I can drone up 17 coming out at once, and that is going to see Stephano finally pull ahead on drones, as of course that 4-gate did have the effect of denying drone production. But yeah, so finally Stephano is going to be ahead in economy, and he's going to want to just drone up for a little bit, maybe take a 4th base once he gets saturated off his 3 bases, and take up a bit, try to get into the late game, and ideally limit the Protoss as much as possible to as few bases as possible. Meanwhile, StarNaN is building up a big army, is going to be very heavy in the sentries, which is great against these roaches, and some force fields will do great here, and oh, he gets them off. Very, very nice force fields, and it looks like the sentries will not fall either, so 1 sentry does go down, but that is going to be about it, and a few roaches are cleaned up. Stephano is actually going to get to escape here, as StarNaN does not want to leave himself vulnerable to a Ling run by or something like that, I believe. And as such, StarNaN is going to be able to take his 3rd base, perhaps, although Stephano does have other plans. He is making 22 more Lings, as well as sending out his units to this ramp. At the same time, though, the sentries are already here, and force fields could devastate this army if StarNaN reacts in time. And the force fields are very defensive, and the cancel will be forced here. And yes, it does go down. Meanwhile, though, this army of StarNaN is quite good, and should be able to at least fight off the army of Stephano. StarNaN, though, again playing a little bit hesitantly, I feel. He seems to be a little bit reluctant to overcommit to anything at this stage, and if anything, that could hurt him. Meanwhile, though, Stephano is comfortably off 3 bases. He does have that saturation, not complete, but yeah, actually just about complete, yeah. Basically fully saturated 3 bases now, and he is taking the 4th base, and about the time the 3rd is going to go down for StarNaN, and going to be denied again here. The cancel is forced, but really that cancel probably not worth it for Stephano, as it had literally just started the second before it got cancelled, so it will be rebuilt almost straight away. And also Stephano lost a ton of units there, which is going to put him way behind on units lost tab. So yeah, the idea of denying that 3rd base worked out very well Stephano overall. That last little bit, perhaps an overcommitment. Even so, though, Stephano is in a pretty good shape here. But StarNaN, I mean, he's at 1-1 upgrades, he's getting 2-2, which is going to be great for him against an opponent who has what? Upgrades, I think, if I can find a roach to click on. I'm not sure if he does have any sort of range upgrades yet. Nope, 1-1 just finishing now for those Lings. And yeah, that's the only upgrades that are done for Stephano. So upgrade advantage does go to the Protoss player here. And Infestors and the Hive are coming out though very, very quickly for Stephano, which is the big worry for StarNaN. But if he is able to transition into some sort of late game tech right about now, he should be okay. In saying that though, he hasn't had that much money, and he's only just going to start Colossi now, sticking to the Sentry Immortal for perhaps a little bit too long, and either he might want to apply some pressure before that Greater Spire tech, that late game tech does get out for Stephano. Either StarNaN might want to do that sort of business, or he might want to try and transition as soon as possible. He is though going for some Warp Prism play. You can see a Warp Prism is out, but here comes a big push by Stephano. He does have 1-1 upgrades now finished. They are even on upgrades during this attack, and it looks like the force fields in the position will be good enough for StarNaN. Back over here, the wall-in is done, so he is going to be safe from run-bys over there. And overall, it looks like the SimCity of StarNaN is going to be shutting down Stephano's attempt. That being said though, Stephano is in good shape. The Warp Prism is though trying to drop on the Greater Spire, is going to be scared away by those Infestors and those Infestor Terrans and Queens, and yeah. So while we do see StarNaN knows about the Greater Spire, he is going to try and respond to it. He was not able to deny it with that Warp Prism ultimately failing. A second Warp Prism and a Observer, so the Warp Prism big deal over here, is going to again be cleaned up by a few Infested Terrans and a Fungal Growth. So yep, Infestors doing a great job of denying this attempt at harassment by StarNaN. And StarNaN did get a little bit of scouting in with that Greater scouting out the tech back here. Does see the double Evo chambers, does see the Greater Spire, but at the same time, he hasn't been able to deny it yet. The cool thing for StarNaN though, is that it did cue him to build a Stargate, which is on the way now, and he will have Mothership out not in time for the first Broodlords, but perhaps in time for when Stephano does finally make a big push. Stephano of course can't afford a huge number of Broodlords quite yet, especially if he is going to be getting double air upgrades as his second Spire does suggest. So the danger for StarNaN is really in a few minutes time, at which stage we could see some sort of anti-air developed, maybe some Archons as well for StarNaN. Stephano though is macroing up very nicely. We do indeed see the 5th base being taken over here. Meanwhile an Observer and Zealots moving out to try and get some map vision for StarNaN. The Ling is going to try and kill these Zealots, but they are going to be very cost efficient here, and that is going to cost many Lings their lives, and actually StarNaN wants to save them. So I mean, why not do that? If you get a bunch of free Ling kills, I mean, it's kind of worth it. It's not worth very much to Stephano, but at the same time, free kills are free kills, and Stephano is not yet maxed, although he is approaching max supply, so it is, yeah, a good trade for StarNaN. Stephano now with a count of 4 Broodlords, perhaps going to wait for a couple more to move out, I'd say, although it looks like he is just going to go for it. He does indeed see his opponent moving out, which is a big cue for him to move out himself. One probe here to plant a pylon, and then a couple of Colossi, Sentries, Immortals, and this timing would be great for StarNaN, but unfortunately the Broodlords are already out. That Observer does see it, and basically that's a cue for StarNaN to basically back off and wait for that Mothership before trying to move out. We are going to see a 4th being taken here by StarNaN. He's going to try and deny the space over here. There are 2 attack upgrades on these Zealots, making their DPS really high. But even so, I think the Lings are going to be enough to clean it up before that hatchery does indeed fall. I will keep it selected though regardless, and yep, not even focusing it, so yep. That is going to survive for sure. And meanwhile over here, Lings just scouting around looking for bases, and they are going to see the space over here, I think, and yes they are. And meanwhile though, the battle is going on in the middle of the map, with the Broodlords actually being taken out by some Stalkers. At least a few of them are. You can see of course the Stalkers though are being whittled down. Those Fungal Growths being a bit too strong at the moment for StarNaN to deal with. And his army is still, well, it's actually pretty weak now. But to be honest, he did lose some Stalkers. That's about all he lost. That's expensive. So he should be able to remake that after not too long, if he is given the chance. The Mothership though is almost done for StarNaN, which is going to be great for him if he plans to re-engage. The Colossi though still alive to deal with those Broodlings, which is going to be vital if StarNaN is to win this game. And meanwhile, Stephano is really everywhere at once, moving over here to a wall-in, is going to be saved. It looks like the Sentry, one Sentry not enough though. Stalker's being warped in 2, and yep, we're going to see Stephano back out here. Meanwhile, over here we do indeed see the position getting a bit more secure for StarNaN, who again is still quite lacking in anti-air. I feel like perhaps some poking and prodding from these Broodlords wouldn't hurt at this stage with so little anti-air on StarNaN's side of the map, but nonetheless Stephano is indeed comfortable. He is still sitting on, what, how many bases? I believe it's 6? So yeah, no troubles for him at all. Maybe should be mining a little bit more gas over here as opposed to minerals, but even so, he's still in a good spot. Okay, so upgrades wise for Stephano, we do indeed see the 1-1 done for the Broodlords. 2-2 on the way for that air. And we do see the cannon on the high ground going to be taken out here. This is a great spot for a cannon because, of course, this high ground sucks if you can't control it. As, of course, almost anything that's ranged can hit those probes from that high ground. And we are going to see these zealots, I believe, be cleaned up actually over here. Which is going to hurt StarNaN a little bit, going to distract him a little bit. Going to cause... basically going to, yeah, force him to pull his army back, it looks like, even. And yeah, he doesn't have the strongest army. Look at it, it's 3 Void Rays, some Colossi, some Stalkers, but not really enough to deal with those Broodlords. With the fungal growths going down from the Infestors, and we do indeed see, what, 8 Infestors? It's not going to be the biggest deal with that anti-air, and really, until the Archons come out, he'll be fine. The problem, of course, is that Archons are about to be on the way, I feel, as Dark Templar are being sent out across the map, which could easily, and the next wave of them could easily be Archons. It is so this one's going to be cleaned up. Over here we do indeed see another DT coming over, but there is a Spore as well as all these Spines. Over here, similar situation with Infestors cleaning up, and really Stephano just playing really solid play, macroing up quite nicely, and staying in control of basically any harassment that his opponent throws at him. We do see StarNaN moving out with a Warp Prism over here. Over here we do see another DT being cleaned up. Overall, StarNaN trading pretty inefficiently, and he is behind in units lost at this stage in the game. Economy, of course, has favoured Stephano for quite some time, although Stephano does have a very strong economy too, so overall, you know, StarNan's not in a bad spot. Especially now that the Broodlords are out, the Mothership is out too. We are going to have to wait and see if any Vortexes do land on the Broodlords of our Zerg player. As of course, Broodlords will be devastating here. See, the Broodlings actually scouting out the entire army of StarNaN. Quite cool. That was actually quite a cool play of Stephano to control those Broodlings over there. But yeah, other than that, StarNaN is going to send out some Zealots to harass. He is trying to keep Stephano on his toes, but all these Spines are up already, and really, I believe StarNaN actually could see those Spines. I'm a bit surprised that he's doing this. Perhaps just clearing up supply to warp in a little bit more in terms of the high-tech anti-air units. Other than that, you'd expect StarNaN to be going into Mass Gateway at this stage of the game. He does have 9, but as his money builds up once he is maxed, you'd expect him to go into maybe more like even double that, perhaps, just to be able to re-max out instantaneously. As of course, it's so hard to trade well against the late game Zerg army as a Protoss player. Okay, so if you look over at Stephano, getting a ton of detection to deal with that Mothership, has a ton of Corruptors, a ton of Infestors too, 16 Infestors in fact. And as such, with this harass going on here, so that's cool for StarNaN, but other than that, the army of Stephano looks to be almost perfect, and he appears to be macroing up really nicely. We do indeed see a drop going down over here, the Stalker's going to be cleaned up over here. The StarNan's small-scale harassment not really achieving much in this entire game. Again, over here going to be cleaned up very easily, and yeah, overall Stephano being in control, but still waiting for a big engagement to happen. We do indeed see StarNaN now moving out. He is maxed out at 333 upgrades just about, and he is just kind of scared about how to engage this army, understandably, as Stephano is basically saying you can't attack. So Stephano has basically turtled up and expanded, taken over his side of the map, denied scouting, and as such, StarNaN really needs to go for it all in, all out, not necessarily all in, or basically just, I don't know what else he can do really, otherwise he can just sort of wait for Stephano and sort of drag it out into a stalemate. But even then, more of the map belongs to Stephano than StarNaN, so even that might not favor StarNaN. It's gonna be close either way. Okay, so we do indeed see Stephano. His upgrade's actually not quite finished yet. 3-3 not quite done. StarNaN though at 3-3 is gonna move in and actually get this base before anything else does start. And yes, he does, and gonna back out. So quite an effective play there. But at the same time, Stephano has so much money. Losing a base at this stage doesn't really matter, as by the time it's rebuilt, his bank will probably still be up. And oh, we're going to see a big battle in a moment here, I feel, as StarNaN is going to move in here, take out this hatchery, and he can't really back out though, because he's going to be trapped by these Infestors. Fungal growth's going down, but there is a mass recall. The Mothership was left behind during all of that. I should have noticed that. And meanwhile, more Archons are being morphed in for a total of 9. That could one-shot a Broodlord in a potential Archon toilet. And meanwhile, Stephano is going to move out across the map trying to go for the kill here. We do still see though 100 energy. There is enough for a Vortex off that Mothership. so it is going to be a matter of that mothership to see who can come out ahead in this battle. This could be an all-deciding battle, but at the same time, both players can afford to remax out at this stage. The warp gate count of StarNaN has been increased dramatically, and we do see one Archon not going to die yet. Meanwhile, the army is going to move into the base here. Will it take it out? It looks like no, just going to go straight for the army of StarNaN. One Broodlord being miscontrolled, out of position here, going to die. 2, 3 in fact going to die. A big mistake there by Stephano. Meanwhile, the force fields are going down to try and deny those infestors, and all the position of StarNaN here is actually so brilliant, as he was able to basically snipe some Broodlords, lose hardly anything, and shut out the infestors. Infestors, though, still alive with plenty more Broodlords to reinforce, and at this stage, while attacking the Broodlings, Stephano is going to come ahead in this battle. We'll have to wait and see, though, if the mothership can turn that around, as these Broodlords are a little bit clumped, but Stephano sees the mothership splits out a little bit, and 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe, Broodlords went inside of that vortex. Meanwhile, I believe the mothership is going to be taken out by these corruptors, and it does indeed fall. The Stalkers, though, underneath the Broodlords are going to kill every single Broodlord. The infestors are out of energy, and this Archon toilet, though small scale with not that many Broodlords, is going to see these Broodlords die, and StarNaN does hold, but the supplies are about even after the end of all of it. These infestors go down, it would be so huge for StarNaN. Can he get them? And yes, he does. The Observer is indeed here. And that is going to put StarNaN a mile ahead in this game against Stephano. And yep, every infestor going to go down. And suddenly, Unit Sus tab so far in favor of StarNaN. Production tab does see 9 more Broodlords on the way, as well as the mothership being rebuilt. So the Broodlords, of course, are going to be coming out over here with the Corruptors. The big problem, though, for Stephano is, does he have any gas for infestors? Yes, he does, but he doesn't have the mineral count for infestors. His economy, of course, not super huge. He did get rid of a lot of drones into spines to try and basically make that army as big as possible, but that engagement was so poorly done by Stephano. He just sort of scrambled out across the map. His units were getting out of his, not really clumped up, but they were sort of going in one at a time and dying. They were being force-fielded out, and really, that position was about perfect for StarNaN, and the battle, while it didn't result in one mega vortex, basically couldn't have gone better for StarNaN, considering how good the composition of Stephano was. High Templar for feedbacks could be one change you could perhaps make, only going for DTs to get those Archons. But yeah, in general, very, very good from StarNaN, and Stephano just being a little bit over-aggressive, perhaps a bit bored of stalemates. And meanwhile, we do indeed see some harassment being attempted here, but as was the case early in the game, harassment's still going to be ineffective against Stephano in the later game. Okay, so StarNaN is going to just be rebuilding his army, still trying to get it up. I really feel like this is why players should go more mass gateway, because if he had more gateways than this 14, he'd be able to potentially just go in for like an enormous Stalker warp in, even DTs, and go into Archons, and just roll out with 200 supply instantly. Whereas Stephano has now been able to build up again, now has that infestor count starting to get high again, and now it could just be another similarly big battle to last time with similar compositions. The difference, of course, being a few less Archons, and what else? Basically a slightly smaller army from Stephano. That's about it. But again, more and more infestors, more and more Broodlords on the way, and it's going to be a similar battle to last time. We'll have to wait and see, though, how the positioning does go down in this battle. We do see a very small number of Corruptors, so these Colossi should stay alive for most of the battle, and should be able to deal those Broodlings quite well, trying to reduce that damage of the Broodlords. Meanwhile, of course, we do indeed see the mothership not on 100 energy, so no vortexes could be used at this stage of the game. Over here, Zealots are moving out across the map towards the base of Stephano again. But again, the Spines should be able to deal with that, and meanwhile, the Broodlords are moving into for their engagement. We do see Infested Terrans going down to try and basically scare away the army of StarNaN. He doesn't want to trade against free units forever. But at the same time, he cannot lose this base at all costs, as that is one of his 2 major mining bases, really down to 3 bases at this stage, and probes are starting to fall. Not to Broodling so much, more to the initial attacks of those Broodlords, the initial hit. But the 100 energy is now up for the mothership. We do see, a couple of snipes here on those Broodlords. Meanwhile, the mothership moving into position. Can it get those infestors or the Broodlords? Actually getting nothing. So a little bit of a letdown there for StarNaN, though the Stalkers are going in. They are dying for the most part, though, and the Fungals are on every single Protoss unit. And this time, the army of StarNaN is actually being whittled down quite nicely. Stalkers at the back, though, going in for the flank, are going to kill more and more Broodlords. Is there any fungal growth energy? No. All of that infested Terran investment coming back to haunt Stephano, as he cannot fungal those Stalkers. Fungals would have caused them to die so fast. I mean, although, of course, Stephano does still have some Broodlords left. This Voido, though, is going to wreak havoc amongst them and kill them all, it looks like, with the help of these Stalkers, which are still surviving. And again, another win in engagement for StarNaN, and StarNaN has so much more money than Stephano, with Stephano spending all of his money on re-maxing out on Lings here. The investors are up but with no energy, and the next couple of minutes are a great chance for StarNaN to push in here, as he has a great army still up. He can warp in a ton of Stalkers to get to max supply if he chooses to. And he is indeed doing just that to 187 supply. Meanwhile though, no gas, hardly any minerals for Stephano is going to see him running out of money, and his slightly slow style this game, his basically eagerness to sit back and play passively, seems to have resulted in him basically losing his lead in this game and allowing his opponent to build up to a good supply army. Sorry, to a good composition, when perhaps he shouldn't have been allowed to. I feel like earlier in the game, Stephano, as soon as he got Broodlords, could have gone in and killed his opponent. Instead though, Archons and the Mothership were able to get out because Stephano did delay a little bit, and now we do see a couple of good engagements, leading to StarNaN suddenly being the guy who's way ahead. We do see now the Infestors still on low energy, some going to be taken out here. It looks like a couple more fungal growths still able to go down, but even so, there's nothing to deal much DPS here, and it's probably going to be the end of this base, and Stephano perhaps could be about to lose this game. This Vortex doesn't have too much inside of it, but the base does go down, Stephano down to 2 manning bases, and the army of Stephano getting weaker and weaker as these 3 Broodlords will no doubt fall as well. The Stalker count still high, the Infestors cornered, will not escape by any way. No way they can escape, and there is the well played, the GG from Stephano. And, yeah, it wasn't the most intense game, I'd have to say, of all. It was not certainly the worst game ever. I found that game to be slightly slow, slightly passive from both players. Harass was attempted by StarNaN, who did try his best to hurt his opponent. Stephano's defense was impeccable, his passive play was brilliant, but at the same time, the engagements just so heavily in the favor of StarNaN was kind of unusual. I feel like the creep spread could have been better, maybe some more aggressive spine placement to try and engage with spines. All this sort of stuff that could have helped Stephano out here. Maybe some Mural Parasite going down. It's a little bit hard to know, but at the same time, StarNaN never engaged in a horrible spot. The one time where it looked like things were going horribly for him, as soon as that Infestor energy runs out, the Stalkers have free reign over where they go, what they kill. And yeah, with the lack of anything on the ground other than Infestors and them having no energy, just saw the army of Stephano crumble. And of course that 333 did help. 333 very strong. Like, a lot of places go for 3-3 and not getting that shields upgrades, but yeah, makes the Archons almost unkillable in the short term. And of course the Colossus counts did stay high, not high, but the Colossi never really died. And you can see, 58 kills, those are all Broodlings. And that basically meant that over 100, if you combine these guys, over 120 Broodlings didn't get to really do much. So as such, StarNaN's army composition, his engagements were great, his macro was quite good. I do feel like Stephano could have won in the early game, but overall a decent game from both players, and fairly passive styles coming out. So thanks for watching today. If you did enjoy the game, please do subscribe to my channel. Please do... I do have Facebook and Twitter, which I guess I'll put in the description for all you guys who don't know about that, to be updated on all my videos. And other than that, I'll see you guys on another